Hello, welcome to Read, Drink, Talk, a book club podcast where we read dope books, drink liquor, and talk shit. My name is Anthony Renteria.
I'm Ariel Fletcher.
And today we begin our second breakdown of Carrie. Carrie was released in 1974, and it's a horror novel by American author Stephen King, and it centers around a young woman named Carrie who is bullied at school and has telekinetic powers. As a reminder, we will be covering the first 200 pages of this book, and we will be spoiling anything and everything that happens in these pages. Okay, so I guess to begin, damn, I already forgot where we left off.
I was just about to say, I need a brief reminder of where we left off last episode because I don't even remember. I think we left off when he asked her to the prom, when Tommy asked Carrie to prom. That was the last thing that we read and talked about. So
yeah,
we picked up right after that.
Yes. So we've had a few things happen from here to where we ended this little segment, which was we get more little scenes and sequences of Carrie flexing her telekinetic powers. And that's kind of something we didn't really touch on in the first part. You know, the first part of this, breakdown, we kind of went into the religion and the trauma and bullying and the menstrual cycle stuff. So I guess I wanted to start out just in general, now that you've had a little taste of her psychic abilities and we're about to have an explosion of it. What do you think so far of how Stephen King is writing her powers? What do you feel from all that stuff? Is it interesting to you at all?
I think it's interesting, solely in the fact that it is a telekinetic power. So I think that's dope. One thing that I did notice is I don't know, it's it comes so easy to her. It's I think they kind of describe that when we get closer to that little 100 mark that we make. Since we don't have chapters, it's not I can really reference, oh, this happened in what chapter. But it's it comes so easily, her just being able to use her powers. And I know she's still kind of okay, I'm flexing, I'm just I'm strengthening this muscle basically, and it's making sense, but it's just oh wow, it's going so fast. And also I have no idea what our timeline is here. I have no sense of time with this book, and that's interesting because I just feel the way the book is written, we just kind of jump around so much. It's we'll jump from one perspective to the next, to the next, to the next, and then come back to Carrie, and then bam, now we're reading the little excerpt from these articles that have been written after all this stuff has happened. So we jump around so much that I know it hasn't been that much time since, her whole period situation now, where she's oh, I'm just nervous while I'm sitting here waiting on Tommy to come pick me up for prom. I'm just sitting here making things move. I don't know. She's just definitely practicing the skill a lot more, but I guess I'm just surprised by how quickly she's able to strengthen this muscle, I guess. I don't know. I feel in movies, when you see these kinds of things, it takes people a long time for them to practice with whatever superpower or skill that they have. And with Carrie, it seems to just be so easy. She's a natural with this thing, Yes.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of good points. So I also find that to be true. It's weird how we don't get a lot of sequences or a lot of her training with this power. I think it's all at the fault of kind of the structure. And it's every time I read it, it bothers me more and more because I'm we could have just had more cool scenes with Carrie instead of this report, it was the worst incident of 1974 and 500 kids died and no one knew the incident and Carrie White was it's all this weird sciencey stuff. You know how Netflix has documentaries about murderers or whatever? Yeah. This is legit a true crime book about Carrie's crime.
It is. You're right.
Very weird.
You're right. We jump so much, especially in these last 100 pages, where we're getting the mom's perspective. We're getting Chris and what's the guy's name? Billy or whatever his name is perspective. We're getting Tommy and Sue, and then we're getting Carrie, obviously, and then we're getting the articles. It's almost it's unnecessary because all this stuff that could have been a big reveal, or like you literally
Mm-hmm.
know how the story's gonna end at this point. You know who
Yeah.
dies. You know that Sue obviously lives because she didn't go to the prom or whatever. I wish that this was written differently. Like, I wish we're going along with Carrie as this stuff is happening and we're finding out as she's finding out, and then like, oh shit, bam, like everybody dies. And it was just like, oh wow, I didn't expect everybody to die. But it's like they're
Yeah.
just telling us. So it did bother me a little bit more this week than it did last week. But I also think that's probably because the excerpts seem like they were a little bit more revealing. They're still giving all these details, you know? Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's like they keep giving more and more away. So I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
it did get to me a little more this week.
By the time we get to this prom moment, you're gonna know everything that happens. Like,
Oh
you
yeah.
already know
Yeah.
everything that happens.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like kind of worried when you're like, okay, so they're gonna give us some crazy shit, right? And then I was like,
And I could tell by your lack of response. No, they're not going to, but I guess I still just wasn't expecting him to just give literally just more and more and more and more away. Because even if he had just started off with giving some excerpts and we knew like, okay, like people die at the prom, didn't
yeah.
necessarily have to know everybody died at the prom. I didn't have to know, like, I think one of the articles said like 12 people lived or something like that, or
Mm-hmm.
something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
There still could have been room for like surprise or like mysticism. Like it still could have been
Yeah.
mysterious and just like, oh my god, like, okay, like you gave me more information. But no, it's like as we continue the book, he's just giving it all away. And I just think that's so weird because I've never read a Stephen King book where this is the case. I've never read a book like that at all. But definitely
Yeah.
considering the fact that I've read other books from this author, I'm like actually surprised because I'm like, wow, like that, I feel like that's
Yeah.
never happened.
Outside of those excerpts, I really liked is like all the Billy and Chris stuff. He's so good at making characters that I can like visualize
Oh
and
yeah.
see and that I've seen in my life. Like, I know exactly what kind of girl Chris is. She was in my school. I know
Mm-hmm.
exactly the type of like douchey ass dude that Billy
Yep.
is. And I have like a clear picture of this car bro dude, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just like normal sequences of them changing a tire and then having sex or whatever the fuck. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
just this spoiled rich brat, you know, and it's, oh, I'm getting dirty and shit. And like that is like a revelation to her to get like oil and dirt on herself
Yeah.
because she's
Yeah.
so wealthy. And I can see it now in places like in Alabama where I live. The dichotomy of those two groups of people and like both of them being turned on by each other in like a
Yeah.
weird way. I've been writing a short film little idea that kind of tackles that idea, like how some, I don't know how to word this. Maybe this is problematic, but there's like some people I feel like they, you know, are attracted to people
Mm-hmm.
because of their disenfranchisement or like their lack of whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
that's almost like sexy to them because it's different. And then in my mind, I see that as like a form of racism. Like, you're only interested in me because of you think of me as this like lower class, and that like turns
Right.
you on.
Right.
And then in your head, you're propping me up. Their dynamic kind of reminds me of that, where she doesn't really like him, and he
Yeah.
doesn't really like her. So they're like almost taking advantage of each other in this weird, gross way. But they're both pieces of shit. So like,
Yeah.
fuck them.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did
No, like
their like
facts.
relationship play out to you?
No, I mean, I definitely, okay, so yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, Stephen King, even though I'm like, ugh, I hate that he's giving stuff away, I will say that he still keeps me engaged the whole time because even when we're flipping through different perspectives and we're talking about Chris and Billy, who are people that I don't necessarily like care about, and it's like I want to get to the point of the story, but at the same time, I'm like, but I'm not bored when I'm like reading these other
Mm,
scenes. They're
yeah.
so easy to picture and just like so easy to be transported into. Billy, is that his name? Is his name
Yeah.
Billy? Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
He reminds me of, I don't know if you watch Stranger Things, but like his character reminds me
Oh.
of Billy from Stranger Things. Like
Oh
that's just
shit.
how I imagine him. Like he's like this just douchebag with like his car and he's just kind of like dirty and he's just like a bad boy. And then there's this girl with her like lawyer dad and she's like rich and she's a bitch, right? Because she's just way too privileged and she just is like not in touch with reality at all. all, and she's just an asshole. And then they're just coming together, and she's just like attracted to the fact that like basically he's everything that she couldn't be, but
Yeah.
she's just attracted to him because he just like, yeah, I mean, just literally he lives a life that she could never live, but she doesn't actually like him as a person because he's an asshole, and vice
Yeah.
versa. Like, you know, he doesn't really like her as a person, but she's a bitch, so they just kind of like have this little like a teenage thing going on. So I'm like, whatever. But again, it's really like, as much as I want to complain about like him giving the story away, but I'm like, but again, the story is still so well written where I'm like flying through the
Mm,
book, you know, like
mm,
last week I said I read like over the course of like 4 or 5 days. This week I did 2 days, so I read the bulk of it last night and then finished up today like within 20 minutes. So like I read really fast, but like I'm just flying through this shit. Like, it's a smooth, easy ride. Even though
yeah.
there's things I could change, it's still like, because even
Yeah.
like with Red Rising, like, you know, like there were chunks of that book that were super good and they were like page turners, and there were other
Mm,
chunks of it where it was so dry, where I was just like trying to like make it through, just like skimming over, like, okay, like
yeah.
now he's describing something I extra don't care about. And I don't
Yeah.
find myself feeling that way with this book, even when we're not in the like more action, even though this book doesn't really have action, but even when we're not
Yeah.
in those like scenes where it's more like, ooh, okay, like I want to see what happens next type shit. It's like mostly like the scenes like with Carrie's mom. And also I do think that's interesting that he's giving everything away, and this book is like a horror or thriller book, because you would
Hmm.
think that the whole point of like horror or thriller is that
Is
you're
the
like on,
surprise.
yeah, like the suspense, like I'm on the edge of my seat type shit, like, and he's
Yeah.
like giving it away, but somehow it's still like keeping me engaged and interested. So I mean,
Yeah.
I guess he just must be a very talented writer, which we know he is, but I'm like, damn, you can tell me the whole end of the story and you still have my attention throughout this whole thing. That's kind of
Mm.
crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty. Yeah. Wow. I didn't even think about it like in that kind of way. Like it
Hmm.
is still a feat to be like I'm going to spoil my whole ass fucking story and you're
Yeah.
still going to read the whole
And
damn
I'm
thing.
still gonna read it. I'm still gonna read it. Even knowing that there's no like real true big plot twist type ending, I'm still gonna read this shit.
Yeah.
So
So I've kind of like mentioned how like man, I imagine like my little version of this like as an hour 30-minute movie, just like a 90-minute movie, just like clean to the point. It would just be Carrie's perspective, Chris's perspective, and then Sue's perspective.
hmm.
And like that's all we see. And there would be none of this like mumbo jumbo article shit or whatever. And it would just be bouncing between the three of them. And then like almost like you would see
Mm.
other people's like reaction to events and then we'd get the other perspective of it. And that's something I've been like fantasizing a lot about. Because like I do find all three of them as interesting characters. Because
Yeah.
you have Sue, who is like the wealthy, privileged girl who like doesn't really want to be that thing. Like that's her greatest like anxiety is like that she is not giving back or whatever. And like this
Hmm.
whole idea of getting Tommy Tasker to prom is like kind of relieving that tension for her. And then we have Chris who is just a complete piece of shit. And then we have Carrie who is like at the other end of it like receiving it. And I
Right.
just think it would be so cool if like movie starts, you know, you have all these and you start with each of the three characters and how their lives are so intertwined with each other and it's almost like they can't escape each other's like orbit, you know, like
Hmm.
because Sue does this makes Chris do that, which makes Carrie be in this situation, which makes her do this. You know, it's almost like this like weird fate.
Yeah.
And like I feel that in life sometimes, like where you get involved with someone like in a relationship or friendship or something, and then it's like fuck, you were like the worst friend to have because you're
Oh.
bringing my whole ass life down, you know? And it's like
Mm-hmm.
hard to escape that like gravity pull kind of thing. And I
Yep.
think that would be a cool like thing to talk about because especially in school, at least like in America, you know, school is a very problematic time for a lot of people because of all the drama and all the like
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
shit that goes on. And I love how this book kind of captures that kind of energy too. Like it feels like a school. Like even though I wasn't in school in the 1970s, I can imagine this kind of like no one really gives a fuck about these students in a weird way, you know? Like they're all smoking and like having sex and shit, and like
Mm-hmm,
no one really
mm-hmm.
cares. And just driving around doing dumb stuff.
One thing that was interesting to me about Sue, because I feel like in these last like 100 pages or so, I mean, I guess I don't really have a concept of how many pages it was, because I'm not reading it on the Kindle.
Hmm.
But these next like 100 pages or so, this little chunk we did, I feel like we didn't really get a lot of like Sue's like current, like, or by current, I mean like in 1979 or whatever year this is, like her perspective
Yeah.
then. Most of the stuff we get from Sue is from her book, like the I Am Susan Snell or whatever her book is
Yeah,
called,
yeah.
right? And one of the parts that I thought was really interesting where she was talking about how like basically like she's not sorry about the things that happened, because she's like, basically we treated Carrie like shit, and I feel
Mhm.
bad for Carrie. She's like everyone wants to like come after Carrie, but like really like let's really think about the position that she was in, like what her situation was like. And I thought that was really interesting, and I thought it was cool because it does kind of like, because mind you, like these kids are like 16, 17 years old, you know, and a lot of their thought process, like just like we were saying last week, it doesn't make sense to me that Sue would think like the best way to go about this or the best way to atone would be to set Carrie up with her boyfriend. Like that didn't make sense, and that felt like something
Yeah.
like a teenage girl would say. And then to come like full circle to it, it's like I almost expected for Sue to be like, I hate Carrie, and like damn, she killed all these people, and like I can't believe she did this. But it was more like a, actually I could see why she did that shit, because we treated her like shit, and like we should be really like looking at Carrie's upbringing, and she suffered, you know, all her life basically, and then it led up to this moment. So I was surprised to see her kind of like sticking up for Carrie as an adult, where when she was a kid, we were saying last week, like she could have just stuck up for Carrie in the moment. She could have just
Yeah.
said to other people like, hey, like why are we making fun of this girl, like what are we doing? She could have like stuck up for her then. She could have been her friend then. And instead she's like doing that as an adult, like, oh well, you know, like she had a rough upbringing and stuff. And I'm just like, I just think that's such an interesting turn, especially when every other's like account that we're getting is like, I don't know, it's kind of like even these like scientific articles, it's like, of course, like at the end of the day, it still has this like tone where we're like demonizing Carrie. Like, yes, we're giving
Mm,
Carrie's story, right? But at the end of the day, she killed all these people with her telekinetic
mm,
abilities. And, you know, like it's the same thing with like serial killers. And like,
mm.
obviously, I'm not like on the side of a serial killer, but, you know, it's like, this person was a serial killer. Let's talk about their background. This is what kind of like, this is what we think led up to them being this type of way. But at the end of the day, right, they killed people. They're serial killers, so they're bad people. But then like
Yeah.
Sue's like, I mean, I don't know. Just like her perspective, like surprised me, I guess. Like where she was a little
Yeah.
more sympathetic to Carrie, when we really didn't get that sympathy from her when she was a kid, because her best shot at it was, oh, let me like set my popular boyfriend up to take her to the prom. Like, and the only thing that we get from Sue like now, or you know, in 79 is her like thinking, oh god, like what if this was a mistake, like what if he falls in love with her, like these are the things she's thinking as a
Mm,
17-year-old, but
mm.
then coming to bat for Carrie when she's grown. So I just think that's interesting.
Those are great points. And one thing I am kind of confused about, though, like you saying all that, is like I'm like, because I think in that same like little passage, she says she doesn't feel bad about Tommy, I think is her boyfriend,
Hmm.
dying. I'm like, that's
Yeah,
kind of fucked up. Like, you
I
know, like,
also, yeah, I'm like, wait a
I,
minute now. You don't feel bad about anybody dying because you kind of set that man
like,
up.
yeah, like he wouldn't
You
have died if you
you set him
didn't
up. Yeah,
do the
you
thing that he did because you asked
right.
him to, and now he's dead
Yeah.
because of you, and it's your
And
fault.
it's literally your fault. So and I guess like with that in mind, it's almost like she's still not fully taking responsibility for things, because she's like, oh, I don't feel bad,
Mm,
all this stuff happened. Like, bitch, the only reason you didn't die was because you didn't go to the fucking prom, and the only reason
yeah.
you didn't go to the fucking prom was because you thought you were like, oh, I'm such a good person, I'm gonna let Carrie's Carrie, take my boyfriend to prom and do this, that, the other. Bitch, that's the only reason you're still here. Like, there would have been nothing else saving you. She would have killed your ass too. And so I think
Yeah.
that's kind of fucked up that she's like, oh yeah, like he deserved it. You set that man up. You definitely set that man up. So maybe we could have at least felt bad about that.
See, here's my like alternate reality version of this is like, because I like the idea of like pushing things to the limit. And I love, like, in these few passages, we have a couple moments where Tommy's looking at Carrie, and Tommy's like, damn, she's fine. You know, like, she's beautiful, she's gorgeous, and they're having a good time, and there's, like, this cool vibe that, you know, like, they're actually, like, getting along, and, like, you can tell he's kind of, like, crushing on her or something, you know? Like, there's more than this being a job. You know, it reminds me of, like, those, like, shitty-ass, like, 90s, you know, dumb romance movies where it's like a group of dudes and they're like, we dare you to ask out this nerdy girl, and then they like date the nerdy girl, and they're like, yo, this girl's
then they
actually
fall
hot.
in love with her. Yeah, like she gets a makeover and they're like, oh my god, she's so hot. Like, bitch.
Which is so dumb. You know, it's so dumb when I think about it, because guys like don't notice that shit. You know, they don't notice like when a girl gets a haircut. But in these fucking movies, they're like, oh my god, she's so beautiful now.
Right, like what?
You would not
Sir,
notice this shit.
Come on, she threw a crop top on, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, like, come on. Come on, you did not notice. But yeah, like, yeah, this is that's funny. But keep going.
But I like how this kind of feels more sweet than those like cringy ass versions. Yeah. So what I was thinking, like in my version of this story, like how I would write it out for a film, I would do all the basic blocks. So you're like, okay, Tommy's asking her to prom. All right, this is like following the book. This is following the book like 1-to-1. And then I'd have them make out in a car, and you're like, wait, whoa. Tommy never like made out with Carrie. Yeah. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, this is not, you know, this is not canon. This is not in the book. Yeah. This is ruining the text. But like, I love the idea of like them connecting to the point to where he's lost in this like, you know, quote unquote job. And I would tie in the telekinetic stuff because it's kind of hinted at here where like right before they call their name, Tommy's getting a headache and he keeps hearing Carrie's name over and over again. Yeah. And I would plant that as like, she's almost like, you know, like there's that, I forgot what it's called, but it's not like a seductress, you know, like the sirens. Yeah, like in pirate stories, you know, they like chant and whatever, guys lose their mind. I would like kind of add that as an element to where like she realizes she has this power and she's attracted to this guy to the point to where like subconsciously her mental powers are like getting inside of him and making him hers in like a weird way. Yes. And like, I don't know, I would have them like full blown, because there's like a lot of sex in this story. And I think it's about, you know, that coming of age, like kids learning about sexuality. So I'd go that far, like have them actually like make love and then probably have Sue. I don't know if I would have her catch them, but she would find out about it and she would feel some type of way. Yeah. But then also like I would have, so we have this whole like prom event thing. I would like subvert that too. Cause I'm not sure exactly where did you stop? Did you stop right before he announced the winner? Or have you heard who the winner is? So I stopped. I guess it's like twofold, because I was reading and then I'm like, oh, is this where I'm supposed to stop? But then he's like, oh, like, okay, so but there was a tie. Yeah, there was a tie. Then I was like, technically he's not announcing who won yet. So I kept reading until he was about to say like who actually won. So I read past the tie, and then he's like about to say who won or whatever. So I'm like, okay. Yeah, well, technically, I did see who won because I went to the next page to see, like, should I keep reading? And so so technically, I have read up to who won, but I didn't read anything after he announced who won. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I would subvert that too, because I think all the people who like the book, they're gonna know, like, Carrie wins. That's how she gets drenched in blood. I would have her lose. And then everyone would be like, wait, what the fuck is going on in this goddamn movie? Like, none of this shit is panning out. But then I would have it re-pan out to where, you know, whoever wins. And then everyone's like freaking out and shit. And then, like we're kind of cutting back and forth between in the back of the ceremony where they have the bucket of blood and stuff, which we haven't got to yet. But you can tell like they're like confused, like, wait, who won? Have they won yet?
Yeah,
People are
yeah,
clapping.
yeah.
We don't know what to do. So I'll save everything else for the end. But like, I think it'd just be so cool because this book spoils itself.
Yeah.
I think it'd be like so fair game to have like a movie adaptation to where it's like, I'm going to follow the book to the point to where you think you know where everything's going to go.
And then
and then completely like pull the rug from you and it'd be a whole new experience. But it has the same effects, like, you're still going to get the kills, you're still going to get the drama and like the tension and the fear.
In a different way than you thought you would get it. Yeah, that's smart. That's a good idea. I would watch that.
I've been thinking about it all day. Yeah, I've been thinking about it all day.
It's, how like I feel. And so I feel like in the moment, I'd probably like, what the fuck? This is not like the book at all. But then at the end, I'm like, oh, okay, well, we still got to the same like ending. We still got here, especially like taking this particular book into consideration.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, he spoiled it the whole way anyway. So it wasn't like it was this big thing that we didn't know was going to happen at the end of the book. It's not like you took that like surprise ending away from me. In fact, you gave me the surprise ending that I wasn't expecting. Or the one that I the one that I wanted but didn't get. It's like you gave it to me. So
that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about you and like, damn, like I want to give Ariel, they're like, oh fuck. Okay, so just to spoil my little imaginary version, like I would have her lose, right? And then she goes back and she's like crying, like feeling bad or whatever, and Tommy's like comforting her and like kissing her on the cheek. And maybe this is when Sue Snell comes in. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, why are you kissing my boyfriend? And then she gets all jealous, and then maybe she slaps Tommy. And then, Carrie has that power. I mean, it's kind of hinted here where Tommy immediately starts wrestling with one of his fucking, like, butt buddies or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're just, like, going to town, and she's like, I almost, like, threw him across the prom hallway or whatever.
Yeah.
I would have her kind of, like, stop Sue from, like, slapping him and be like, why are you about to hit him? Like, I don't know. And that'd be the, like, escalating event. Instead of the prom when it would be, like, this other thing. But then... you'd hear from like the auditorium, like there was actually, this was incorrect, that the count was wrong, Carrie won. And then they would be like dragged back in the middle of this like tension moment. And then I'd have all my characters in the same place. Yeah. And then I'd fuck shit up more later on that you'll discover.
Okay. That sounds good already. I'm like, damn, I wish that's how it went. But okay. All right. I'm excited to hear the rest of your version next week. So
yeah.
But yeah, that's dope. But yeah, this book it's just so weird and interesting how it's written. I just think that's such a, like I said, especially like given the genre, like I'm like, okay, this is supposed to be like horror thriller, and you're like just telling me everything. Like, where's the horror? It's not, now it doesn't feel like horror anymore. It's not scary. It's not thrilling.
It's more of a drama.
No. Yeah, it does. It feels
it's like a
more
high school
like
drama.
Dramatic. But I guess when I think Stephen King, I'm like, ooh, horror. Like, like that's just my first thought. Yeah. I'm like, okay, some horror, like thriller, mystery shit, and it's really not that. This is definitely more dramatic and more, because I mean, if you're telling me everything, it can't be a fucking thriller at this point. And I guess a piece of me is still like holding out hope that there's gonna be something that I didn't see coming. I know it's not gonna be like a ooh, oh my god, but I still am like hoping there's something like, okay, a detail that he doesn't spoil that I don't get until we see it happening. I don't know though. Like, I feel like I just keep holding out hope for things that don't happen. So, yeah.
Oh, well, speaking about holding out, I forgot to ask you, what are you drinking, or what have you drank?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I actually finished my drink. So I was thinking like, okay, I'm going to have to take a break soon to get another one. But I am drinking vodka, a vodka soda. So, just vodka, club soda, and a little lime. So that's what I'm on today. Yeah. I tested this out last weekend when I went to the bar with my cousin, and it ended up working a lot better for me and my sensitive stomach. So it's
Wow.
not as tasty, which I mean, I feel like now I've kind of like adapted to the taste of it, which is literally just like basically like watered down vodka with some lime in it.
Mm,
But it
yeah.
does work a lot better. You know, there's like no sugar in the club, so it's basically just sparkling water and vodka, and I just add a lime. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. So we basically are kind of drinking the same thing. I got this. It's a sparkling water with vodka
Oh, okay.
called Cat Head. Cat Head
Cat
Sparkling.
head. Oh, okay. Okay. How is that? How's that going?
It is amazing. So
Oh, okay.
it's 100 calories, sugar free, everything else free. Literally has two ingredients, vodka and sparkling water.
Oh.
But, it's like that sparkling water that's kind of flavored. So, like, this one's cranberry,
Oh.
and it's good. It is so, like, I can hardly taste the vodka. It's kind of like a White Claw, but without the hardcore White Claw taste. It's more,
Oh.
it honestly just tastes like a sparkling water. And then I'm just like, oh, I'm getting drunk.
Oh, okay, okay. That's kind of
I'd recommend it.
cool. All right, I'll have to look
Yeah.
into that. That sounds like chill enough for me to try. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely would. I definitely will. But yeah, so right now, I just bought like little cans of club soda, and I just like poured 2 shots of vodka in there and just chopped up a lime. So that's what I'm on. So like the most basic thing.
I guess, yeah, it's kind of hard to, like, break this down into traditional scenes like we did for Red Rising because it's all over the place.
Yeah.
But I guess one big scene that I kind of wanted to hear your opinion about, which was Chris and her boyfriend Billy.
Billy.
Yeah, they decide to kill a pig, drain its blood, and put that shit in a bucket that, we're going to use later on here. But I guess I just wanted to hear your opinion of that scene and their little plan here.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought that was so extra and over the top. I was like, okay, so obviously I was not alive in the 70s, but I'm like, was this their only fucking option at the time, was to go to someone's farm and kill 2 of their pigs and drain them for blood? Like, I was like, that's really the thought process. We couldn't have just we couldn't have just colored like water, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, we couldn't have used paint. I mean, there were just so many other things. Like, I really was thinking this is so, because I'm like, that's evil. First of all, because
Yeah.
why are you going and killing 2 innocent
An
pigs? It's
animal.
not like 2 of them. And it's not like Chris or Billy lived on a farm and they're just like, whatevs, these are my pigs. I'm just going to use their blood. We're using them for something else. We don't need the blood. Like, blah, blah, blah. It's like they literally are going to some other man, some random man's house, killing his
Yep.
pigs and not doing anything with the body, just taking the blood and leaving and putting them in buckets. And I just thought, like, that's fucking cruel and crazy as fuck, because I just feel
Yeah.
like there were so many other ways. Again, paint would have sufficed. It did not have to be pig blood. And then I was like, can you not, like, I guess I was just thinking like there was no other way to get this blood. There wasn't like you could go to the store and like you couldn't have just bought like pig like intestines or something and just like plopped them
Yeah.
on top of her head. Like, it literally had to be on some demonic shit like that. Like, that shit was, that was very crazy, and it just seemed like unnecessary, like just super unnecessary, and like pretty wild for it to be a bunch of teenagers. I don't know. I just thought, like, wow, what a crazy ass scene. Like, that, it seems like there could have
Yeah.
been so many other options for this, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, like,
And
did you think that, or like, am I just
Yeah,
like
no,
sensitive
yeah.
to the pigs? Like, I don't
No,
know. Like,
I thought the same thing. 'Cause, like,
okay.
this is like a scene. Like, again, like I think Stephen King does a really good job at like explaining scenes. Like, I imagine the pig screaming and howling and
Yeah.
like shaking and moving, and then the way they hit it on the head, like
Yeah.
that felt like brutal. And then
Yep.
the slicing of the throat, and then the blood squirting on everyone around. Like, it was just so visual. And then, like, even the smell, like the metallic bloody smell.
Yep.
And I can just imagine, like, oh, this is fucking gross. And you can
Yeah.
almost feel like they know it's gross, and it's almost like turning them on in a weird way. You know, like,
Yeah.
these are all psychopathic kids
Yeah.
in a way, Like, they're all
Shit's
showing
crazy.
those signs and tendencies. And they're all like Billy and Chris, like they're getting a kick out of this. You know,
Yeah.
this is like exciting. I think even Billy says like at one point he like comes to this realization like he's some like fucking philosopher poet. He's like, pig's blood for a pig?
Yeah.
And
Like he
that's
just
like
thinks it's like
the
that.
greatest revelation of his life. Like, god damn.
Yeah, and
Pig's
even like,
blood?
because even he says it the first time, and then it's like he says it again to Chris, and she's like, "What did you say?" And he just like
What the
giggles.
fuck you
He's
talking
like
about?
nothing, and he just like giggles to himself, and it's just like, sir, it is not. It's not as poetic and just like revolutionary as you think it is. It just sounds crazy as fuck. Like,
Oh god.
I don't
This
know. It
is
just seems so
that.
wild. That is just so wild. And yeah, the whole scene was just so brutal. I mean, everything
Mm.
about it was just brutal. Cause I'm like, what the fuck? You're just hitting, like, what were they using? Like a sledgehammer or something like that, I think, on the
Yeah.
pigs. And I'm like, oh my God. And then like, oh,
Yeah.
we didn't get enough. Let's kill a second one and only use part of it to fill up this second bucket. And then the rest of it is
Yeah.
just gonna spill out on the ground. Like, no worries. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Like, who are these kids? These
Yeah.
these kids are crazy as fuck.
And see, this is the one. So, like, a lot of this book is not like the traditional Stephen King style that I
Mhm.
know him as, like
Mhm.
from the other books that I read. This scene is like one of the few, like, oh, okay, this is Stephen King, where you
Yeah,
see
yeah.
like humans and people doing brutal acts.
Yeah.
And like I feel this a lot from like Salem's Lot, which is his next book, which tackles vampires and stuff, and then even like Pet Cemetery.
Mhm.
Like there's a weird death, like a kid gets like ran over in the beginning of
Yeah,
that
I
book.
read Pet Cemetery. Yep.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like,
that's a
whoa, this is like dark as fuck. And the way he's
yeah.
describing it is like just like flat. You know, it's
Yeah.
almost like how a doctor would see someone dying on a patient bed.
Yeah.
But it's like normal ass people seeing this death like that. And yeah, so like this is like what I see Stephen King as. Like this is his stick, is
Mhm.
like weird, gruesome things with people who don't care. Like
Yeah.
enacting these acts. And it just shows like how some people lack like humanity or
Yeah.
sympathy or empathy for like other living things. And yeah, and it's cool that like eventually we'll get to the Pet Cemetery version, which is animals, which, you know,
Mhm.
this is kind of like a little like pre-reference to how animals are going to fight back at some point.
Mhm.
But yeah, I thought it was weird. And then like it's going to be interesting because like if you really think about it, you know, they get this pig's blood, so it's probably like hanging out in a bucket for like 2-3 days. Like that shit's gross.
Yeah.
Like if you really think about like pig
Yeah.
blood drenching on you. Oof.
Yeah. Yeah, not feeling that. Not feeling that at
Yeah.
all. That
Oh my
shit's
god.
gross. I'm glad he was like, oh, it was frozen solid. I'm like, yeah, it fucking better have been frozen solid because any pig's blood that would have sat in some buckets for a couple of days would have been fucking disgusting and just rank and just, ugh.
Mm.
Ugh. The
Yeah.
bacteria. Like, I'm like, that sounds nasty.
Oh my
Ugh.
god.
If Carrie didn't kill everyone with her telekinetic powers, that rank ass pig's blood definitely would have, you know?
Oh my god.
Would have got everybody in there. Like, that shit was nasty.
That's like I already forgot his name from Red Rising. The
Dar-
guy who has a blood pact.
Oh, man.
Fucking Cassius?
Yeah, Cassius.
Is it Cassius? Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like he had the same moment that Billy had, like a scab for his scab.
Yes, yes.
You know, like he said some shit in like his closet, you know,
yeah.
with his shirt off. Just like a scab for a scab. God damn, this is genius.
He was like, "This is really gonna get him. This is gonna get him." And we're just
He's
looking
gonna
like,
think about this every night.
and we're just looking at Cassius like, "Ew, why did you have to like eat your scab off? That's nasty."
I'm gonna spit it in his face too.
That's
But yeah, that's
gross.
kind of like the biggest scene that happens. You know, we get some moments with Carrie's mom where she's talking about, and I guess this is like a little part that I would dig out more in like my little dream version of this movie interpretation, is that it's kind of implied that Carrie's mom was like raped, and that's how she became pregnant with Carrie.
Yeah, yeah.
But then there's also like this other layer of, I don't know if we've gotten to it yet or if we get to it later, but there's like this implied layer that she was raped, but then she enjoyed it, and that's why she is so like into like punishment or self-punishment and like atonement and all this like crazy religious stuff because she kind of wanted it, and that's
Yeah.
her like conflicted area. I was gonna ask you about that. Like that's kind of weird part of this book is that her whole, I don't know, and she's just so crazy about it. Like she keeps talking about like period blood and like
Yeah.
vaginas
And like
that's,
smelling.
like,
She's talking about like guys, like they smell it.
can
Like,
smell it.
yeah, I don't know. It was so weird. I guess it was just so animalistic that it was almost uncomfortable. You're like, ew. Like, first of all, you don't talk to your daughter about having a period in general, right? Like, you bring up none of this to her. You don't talk about sex. You don't talk about like just like normal like puberty things and hormonal things. You fucking call them, what does she call them? Something pillows. What is she?
Oh, dirty pillows?
Dirty pillows, right? Yeah, like
Yeah.
you call them dirty pillows. Like you got all these like other things that you want to say, other things that you call these, and you give her no background, but this whole time like you're still talking about stuff, and she just makes it so animalistic that it's just so uncomfortable. Like, because she still brings it up, but then brings it up in like a, oh well, you're sinful for having these thoughts, and you're sinful for this period blood, and you're sinful for like going to the prom with these boys, and all boys want are the blood, and they smell the blood, and I'm just like, ugh, like that's nasty, you know? Like I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, this is how
ass people.
Yeah, right? I'm like, this is how you describe these things to your daughter. Like, this is how you, like, prepare her for the world. You know what I'm saying?
And it's
like,
all her fault.
Yeah, and I just think
fault.
it's so fucked up the way that it happens. Because I don't know. Again, it's just like, this is the way that you choose to make your daughter aware of these things, where you're not bringing, like, any true awareness. You're just, like, talking about these things in, like, weird, like, euphemisms, and then, like, demonizing everything about it, even the stuff that like Carrie has no control of, like her period. She has no control over this happening. Like, this is just a thing that happens to girls her age, and like it's just a part of life. But instead her mom's making it this whole like demonic thing, and her having breasts, like, oh my god, duh, like of course she's a girl going through puberty, like she's gonna have these, and you call them dirty pillows. And like, oh, and even like finding out that like when, you know, we had that whole scene before where it was with the Stones, like Carrie as a 3 or 4-year-old seeing the neighbor's daughter topless, seeing her dirty pillows or whatever, and being like interested, like, what the fuck is this? Like, how do I get some of those, right? Like, and then like having this scene later, like in this next part of the book, where we find out like her mom was going to kill her over this shit.
Yeah.
And the only reason she didn't kill her was because Carrie used her telekinetic powers to make fucking rocks hit the house, and like did all this stuff that caused her mom to like basically be like frightened or just be so startled that it didn't happen. But she was gonna kill a child over this shit, you know? Oh, also to find out that Carrie, like, this telekinetic ability has run in the family, where her mom knew that, like, the mom's grandma had this telekinetic ability that the mom knew about, and the mom was like demonizing then, and then to recognize it in her child was like, oh, I was gonna kill her immediately. I was going off that bitch immediately, but I didn't do it. And then when she was 3 or 4, I was gonna kill her again, but I didn't do it. Like, that's crazy. Like, I don't know. That I now I forgot the original question, because I feel like my vodka soda's hitting me. But I just wanted to say, like, her mom is crazy. Oh, like, just the animalistic, you know, descriptions of everything. And like, yeah, and it's just like she was gonna kill her like toddler. You know, Carrie's a toddler. Toddlers are super curious. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course they're gonna be like, especially if a toddler's growing up in a household where they're not seeing these things. Yeah, like they're not seeing these things. They have no knowledge. And it's not like maybe to a 3-year-old, you're not like giving them like, oh, here's the birds and the bees talking. These are what breasts are for and this. But like a 3 or 4-year-old is probably going to see their mom's breasts. They're probably going to be like at least familiar with like, oh, this is what these are, to where they're not super like, oh my God, I've never seen these before on some like rando stranger, you know, to the point where you're finna kill your daughter because she was looking at another person's quote unquote dirty pillows. Like, that's
Yeah.
crazy. That's literally insane. Like, I'm laughing, but that's like literally, like, she's a psychopath. Like, I don't know what's wrong with her
Yeah.
mom, but there's a lot of things wrong with her. And I wonder where
Yeah.
that stems from. I don't know, but like, shit's crazy. And I don't know, again, like, to find out that the whole time, like, her mother has had exposure to this with her grandmother and still, like, demonize the fuck out of Carrie. Crazy.
Yeah, that's something I totally forgot about the grandmother having the powers as well. Because they have like a whole segment that's like, oh my god, it like explains like, you know, male, female, carrier, non-carrier, showing, not showing, you know, that whole genetic thing. And it's very interesting because like that's something that I kind of struggle with this book is like I think Carrie's mom is a little too far into the like crazy religious kind of stereotype.
Yeah.
I think I would have like in my interpretation, I think I would bring her back a little bit. Like I would make her at least a little bit more like sympathetic or something. And like I would do all that by just hinging on the fact that she's had a rape trauma and like that's the like okay, I can get why she's like this crazy because like she's like the trauma of her incident is just like beyond like it's like destroyed her mental state.
Yeah.
And I think that would kind of ground her. Like I would recenter everything instead of being about like religion, I would recenter her actions as I don't want you to suffer the way I did.
Yeah.
And the way that grandma did.
Yeah.
And, you know, like people are going to take advantage of you or something like that. Like I think I would have centered that. Still had the religious overtones, but like make it more personal because that would have made it more. I don't know. It's weird. There's like a lot of weird moments that we get here where like they're eating dinner and then the mom is like, eat your food or whatever the hell. And then Carrie tells her like, I'm going to prom. And then she's like, starts reading Bible verses and Carrie's like, no, mama, I'm going to prom. And it's like this, like, it's not badly written, but it's like, oh, like, I don't know. It's kind of cringy. You know, it's like kind of like, okay, I know. I don't know if it's just like, we've seen so many of these kind of scenes, like I don't know, and then it's also like Southern out of nowhere. Like I feel like the mama thing is like a very Southern kind of phrase. So like I immediately think of all like the bad Southern movies that have happened in the past 20, 30 years, and I'm like, ooh, like I don't know, this scene's not working out. And even when she's like using her powers to like bring out knives and throw things against the wall, and then she's just like screaming Bible verses at her. Like, I don't know, like, none of that feels too personal and, like, interactive. So I would have, like, slimmed that down and made it more about, like, I don't know. Like, I really love scenes where, like, someone gets in an argument, and then through that argument, they reveal things about themselves and, like, their trauma and their pain. You know, like, I'm fighting, like, let's say we're in an argument because I left my socks on the ground. And you're like, why the fuck are you always fucking messy? And then, like, I bring out shit about, like, how my dad beat me or something, and that's why I leave my socks out. You know, like, they seem unconnected, and then you're like, damn. Like, he's, like, this is actually something that's inherent in his fucked up life or something. And then there's, like, a sympathy, and, like, it brings everything down, and then you, like, kind of, like, want to connect, but then there's that weird awkwardness where it's, like, we've been yelling at each other for, like, 2 hours, and now, like, I don't really want to hug you, but I do want to hug you. You know, like
right.
And I think that would have like fit perfect with them because it's like, I don't know, like we get so many movies and stories about like young boys and men not connecting with their fathers. And that's always like such an easy thing to tackle because men are just generally unemotional, you know, so they just don't say shit and it's just problems. But like this is like the female version, but then there's like this whole religious thing that's like muddying it up to where I don't think it really captures the reality of what like a daughter-mother relationship is, where I think, and I don't know, because I'm not a woman, and then I don't really have a deep connection with my mother, but like I just imagine like an actual mother-daughter relationship would be the mother wanting to protect the daughter and like wanting to pass on information and history and like their traumas and like things that they've experienced so their daughters don't experience the same things they experience. But then it's like you can't just say it plainly because we're just naturally not good at talking to people, you know, like we naturally want to hide the very personal things that we need to hear. So it's like, I don't know. I think that could have been interesting.
That would have been definitely interesting, and it would have made me have a little bit more like sympathy for the mother, and also just like, I don't know, just like see her as a better person, I guess, or or almost just understand her more. And that maybe
Yeah.
so it wouldn't have necessarily made me see her as a better person, but I would understand her more, and I could understand, okay, like, she's not doing it in the best way, and there's a lot of ways that I would fix this, but I understand where she's coming from. Whereas in
Yeah.
reality, we're reading this book and I'm like, no, the mom's just crazy as fuck, and like,
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
a
she's just
bitch. You
straight
know what
up
I'm saying? Like,
10
she's
out of 10.
crazy, just like there's nothing we can do for this mother-daughter relationship, and I just feel bad for Carrie.
Yeah.
And I can't really speak on, you know, what you were talking about either, because I don't have like I don't have the best relationship with my mother. I don't have a deep connection with my mother either. And so I can't really speak on that. But as far as like what I would have liked to see, like, I definitely, yeah, I wish we could, but at the same time with my mother, I have an understanding of like things, like my mother is a human and things happen to her, and this is how she is. Like, this is how she ended up to where she is now. Whereas, like, with
Yeah.
Carrie's mom, what's her name? Like, Marietta or something? Like, Carrie's name is, like, Carrietta, and her mom's name is, like, Marietta or something like that. But, like,
yeah, something.
whatever it is, like, with...
Or is it Margaret?
Margaret, something, yeah, something like that. White,
Margarita?
whatever. Mrs. White, right? Like, I don't remember what her name is, but like, whatever her name is, the mom, it's like, I have no sympathy for her. If anything, I'm just like, you are literally a fucked up person, and your daughter suffers from you being a fucked up person. And like, yeah, we do kind of get that, like, okay, like, maybe I can see, like, okay, like, rape might have happened, but it's almost like she's such a just shit person that it's like, you just kind of skip over that, and it doesn't really bring any additional like sympathy or empathy to the situation, where it's just like, well, I still feel like you're a fucked up person, and you wanted to kill your child, and then you wanted to kill her again when she was a teen or a toddler, and then you wanted to kill her again now that she's a teenager, and now we're getting to the point where I'm like trying to figure out, is the mom going to kill herself, or is she trying to sacrifice Carrie when she comes home? Like, I still am like confused on what the mom is saying in this moment, where she's like sharpening this knife, and, you know, she's talking about like, so I'm like still trying to figure that out. I think when I was reading it, I was thinking of it as like, okay, she's gonna like kill herself, but like, I now I don't remember what she said, so I'm like, is that what it was, or was it like, oh, I'm gonna kill Carrie when this bitch comes home? I don't know. But, you know, like, I don't know what the mom's thought process is, but I know that I feel no sympathy for her. Like, I don't care about her story. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Stephen King hasn't really made it a point to point out her story to where I do feel something for her. I really just feel like she's a piece of shit, and whenever she dies, I'll be happy about it. You know, it's like, well, there's one less crazy bitch in the world. Like, you know, like, because one thing I do know about having trauma or having issues with your mother is that you're going to care one way or the other, right? Like, whether you have a shitty relationship or with your mom or not, it's going to affect you, the things that happen to your mother. And it's like something that you can't change. It's like this, I guess, just like this unspoken bond of like, probably just from literally growing in their womb. Like, there's something to be said about the relationship between a mother and their child. Whether, you know, it was a good relationship or not, you're going to have this like deeper connection to them that you probably can't even explain. And so, like, even though Carrie probably knows, like, in the back of her mind, she knows that her mom's a crazy ass bitch. She knows that, like, the shit that her mom does is not right. At the same time, she doesn't really know anything else because she's only grown up in this household. And of course, she's still gonna love her mom. Like, at the end of the day, she's still going to love her, because even when she's like at the prom and she's having this like premonition or whatever it is, like, she feels this like dread. She feels like something bad is going to happen. And I know at the end of the day, she's still always worried about what her mom is thinking, what her mom is doing, how her mom's going to react. And I think that sucks. Like, again, just like speaking as someone who doesn't have a great relationship with their mom, like, it sucks, because like it's almost like you want to be able to turn it off. You want to be able to be like, well, like, fuck this bitch, basically. Like, it's almost like you want to be able to say
Mm-hmm.
that, but you
Mm-hmm.
can't because she's your mom at the end of the day. Like, you're going to love her. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to always be connected. You're going to always, like, be worried about them and like the relationship. And so I feel like that's really highlighted here because it doesn't matter like if Carrie knows that her mom was gonna fucking kill her when she was 3 years old or not, like she's still gonna care what her mom says. She's still like worried about what her mom is thinking about her.
Yeah, you point out like a really good point there. It's like it's almost like this like weird
Yeah.
instinctual subconscious thing, you know? Cuz like it's almost like we know
Yeah.
that's the only mom we'll have. Like even if they're a terrible mom or whatever, or if they weren't even
Mm-hmm.
like much of a mom,
Yeah,
it's
and
still like that's
you'll
my
never
mom though.
have a
You know, like
connection
even if
with
you
it
hate
with
them.
another person like that because you were made by a
Yep.
I mean, you know, of course, like your dad has like, you know, we won't get into like the genetics and biology behind it, but like you were literally made inside this person, right? Like this woman carried you for, you know, 9 months or so. And there's just
Yeah.
never going to be another connection like that. And I don't have kids, so I can't say like, oh, well, when you have your own kids, then you feel that way. But I still feel like even when you have your own kids, you're still going to have this like soft spot in your heart for your mother because there's no other connection on earth like that. Like, you're not going to get that with a friend. You're not going to get that with a
Yeah.
spouse. You're not going to get that with your dad because that's just not how
Yeah.
it works. Like there's just this yeah, like instinctual like connection and instinctual like you want this relationship with your mom. Like and I don't know, I guess it's a mammal thing, but
Mm.
whatever it is, it can suck for you if you don't have a good relationship with your mom because it's almost like you want to be able to cut that tie, but you can't. It's like beyond just like a thought process. It's just
Yeah.
beyond like, oh, well, this person like doesn't care about me or this person like has fucked me over. It doesn't matter. Like it's going to be there one way or the other, you know? And it's like super evident in this type of situation
Yeah.
because my situation with my mom is nowhere near like nowhere near this Carrie shit. Like I mean me and my mom have a lot of shit. We have a lot of shit and it's not always great, but it ain't nothing on some Carrie
Yeah.
and whatever her mom's name is, white shit. Margaret White shit. It ain't
Margaret.
on that. So, but it's like even with all that shit that Carrie went through, you know, like her mom, she still cares about her mom. Like she still cares what her mom thinks. She
Yeah.
still, even when she's telling her like no, she's like,
Yeah.
it's like Carrie's like still telling herself, we get this little thing like, I'm not scared of you. Like she's still like basically trying to pump herself up, you know, like I'm gonna stand up to this woman. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
what I want to do. But she's still thinking about her even at prom.
And it's like that's the thing that I get like really excited about like when I write my own stories is like I love the gray area where you as a reader like that's my like goal, like every character you feel bad about to the point to where like you have your like central hero, right? Like let's say it's Carrie, but then you feel bad about everyone else even though it's not about them. You feel like fuck.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's going to get fucked. And like I love that feeling. Like I love that like escalation of like damn, like but she's trying to do the right thing. She's just like a fucking idiot about this shit and she is not a good communicator and she's just not a good mom, but like damn, her heart's in the right place and then Carrie's like fucked up, but then her heart's in the right place. Like I love the idea of like cuz I feel like that's basically actual life is like one thing I always think about is like you know how like people like can be pieces of shit like in public and do like whatever the fuck, you know, like someone like fucking honk at you for not going on a red light or a green light or something, and you're like I'll get out of this fucking car and beat the shit out of you, like the fuck are you like you know, but then like I imagine like what if that person has like is having the worst week of their life and they're like if I'm late to this thing, you know, I love those kind of like stories and ideas where people are in conflict, but it's like people are in conflict because everyone's life is in conflict. And it's like almost like we're all like a web of stress and anxiety. And like I feel that now, especially like just in our society and culture and I mean, just the state of the world now. Like everyone's almost like at like a weird point where like we're
Yeah.
all kind of stressed out. And we're all like, we're good, we're making the
Yeah.
shit, we're making ends meet. But in reality, we're all kind of like,
Yeah,
we're
facts.
like not good. We're not in a good spot right now. And I don't know, I just love stories like that. And yeah, like I do wish, like I've talked about this a lot earlier, but yeah, like I do
Mhm.
wish we'd have more sympathy with her, because then it would make the worry more. Like, damn, like she's
Yeah.
gonna kill her mom, and that's not gonna like. I'm not gonna feel great. Where right now, like how you were saying, like
Right.
yeah, we
Like
have no
when
sympathy for Margaret.
yeah,
Like
when she dies,
Margaret
I'm gonna be
dies, I'm
good
like
with it. You know what I'm
cool.
saying? I'm not gonna feel anything. I'm gonna be like, yeah,
Yeah.
damn right, Carrie, kill your fucking mom. You know, she was a bitch anyways. Like she deserved it, right? And I don't want to feel like that. Like I wish there was an opportunity to be like,
Yeah.
damn, like it's like I still understand because at the end of the day, she caused you all this pain and trauma, right? But your mom was just a human
Yeah.
being and she had her own pain and trauma. But I mean, it takes time to realize that. And
Yeah.
also, like, Carrie is 16, 17, or however old she is. And you don't know that kind of stuff at that age. Like, it took me years, like, until like 2020. So I was like 24 then, like before I realized like my mom is just a human being just like I am, and it took
Yeah.
for some crazy shit to
Yeah.
happen for me to be like, oh wow, like she's human too. Because I almost feel like when you're, I mean, everyone's a child, everyone's someone's child, right? But it's like when you are just thinking of it as
Yeah.
like this person is supposed to be my parent, this is what I have in my head as what a parent should be, and my parent didn't meet that like requirement. They didn't they didn't like fulfill that for me. Like you're just upset and you're like, well, why couldn't you be better? Like I don't understand. Like
Yeah.
if I were the parent, right, like I would have done this that. I would never
Mm.
do this to my kid. And in
Mm.
reality, like our parents are just human beings. And my mom
Mm-hmm.
was 19 when she had me, so she was still relatively young. Like I can't imagine having a kid when I was 19, like, and I know people have kids
Yeah.
younger than that, but I
Fuck.
personally, when I was 19, I could not imagine having a kid. I still at 26 am like, I'm not ready for a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like I just don't feel like I'm ready
Yeah.
to like be a parent yet. And so I can't imagine like being
Yeah.
like almost kind of like forced into that as a teenager. And I know that she has her own traumas and stuff like that. And so it's like, but you don't know that until you become an adult, until you get older and you're like, oh my God, like parents are just people, like they have their own traumas, they have their own issues, they have their own like
Yeah.
upbringing and backgrounds, and they have parents that might have traumatized them, that might have like it tends to be a cycle, right? Especially
Mm.
like in my situation, like when I was
Yeah.
growing up, I idolized my grandparents. They were the like my mom's parents. They were the best. They took care of me and my younger brother, and I was just like, wow, these people are amazing. And then I get older and I find out stuff from my mom about my grandparents, and I'm like, oh my God, like how they were parents to my mom and
What?
to her sister, and I'm like, fuck, I could have I would have
Mm.
never imagined that happen. And I find that that's like a common thing where like people, like of course they make a bunch of mistakes with their children, and then when they have grandchildren, it's almost like they try to make up for it. And so like you wouldn't think, like if you had bomb ass grandparents, you would think they were
Yeah.
bomb ass parents, and it's like a lot of the times they weren't. They just like that was their first go around, yeah, and then they learned,
They
and when they
learned.
had grandkids, they're like, this is how I'm going to be better.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they didn't like instill that information into their own kids, who are now my parents, and now my parents are fucked up. And it's like, so it's just like literally just a cycle,
Yep.
and it takes for one person to like do the work to break that cycle. And evidently there was some sort of cycle that was happening with Carrie's mom. And we don't, at least up to this point, we haven't got that type of information. But I know like it couldn't just be like, I feel like you don't just randomly decide to be this super religious, like to the point where it's like mania, you know, because it's not just like, oh, I'm just religious. Like her mom is like psychologically, like pathologically, like manically religious, and it's just not making sense. And that means there's got to be some sort of background there, like something had to have happened to have gotten to this point, but we don't really get that information. So we don't really like view her as another just human being who was just fucked up. It's just like she's a trash ass person. And she tried to kill her daughter a couple of times, and like she just continuously traumatizes her daughter, and there's so many things she could have done differently, but who knows what the mom's background was, what her upbringing was. I don't know.
Just to like lead back into my little fantasy of this movie is that I would start, because I'm a huge fan of like movie intro credits, you know, like James Bond, you have like the credits while like weird shit's happening. I would have credits and then have this scene where we see Margaret as like a younger adult, and she's being like, we wouldn't show like the actual rape or whatever, but we would hear like kind of the beginnings of a rape and then her taking control, because it's kind of hinted in this book that like she liked it and then she went over because she's so repressed, like sexual, because of her religion. And then we are hearing all that, and then we cut to her in a car driving home, or like driving away from that incident, and now we are seeing her feel the guilt and the grossness of like, what did I just do? Like, I wasn't supposed to do that. And then she would like, you know, because I imagine this would be like in the 60s or 50s or whatever, she would like put on like a cassette in her car, and she's like driving all crazy, and like her face is just like in shock, like, you know, because she's been raped, and then she's also processing all this shit, and she's listening to like this like a Christian tape or whatever, like reading the Bible, and she's like just reciting this tape, and she's like blasting it while she's like driving down the road like at like 90 miles an hour, like almost she's like she wants to commit suicide or whatever, and just like processing this. And that would be like the beginning of like, all right, this is what started her, like how you're saying, like the cycle of trauma. And then we start with, you know, the birth of Carrie, or like we see that, and then we see her like as a young adult with the dirty pillow incident, and then on and on and on. But like, I feel like that's what like this book is missing, is like, since we're not getting it chronologically, like we're almost like, it's hard to connect with anyone when we're getting different perspectives and all this like mumbo jumbo third person account, like technical shit. Like if it would have just been like a clean narrative, I think it would have worked. And like, I don't know, that's what I imagined, because like I want to start. Like, where did this begin? Because it didn't begin with Carrie. It began with Margaret,
and it's like you have to be open-minded to thinking about that kind of stuff too, because I mean, again, I'll say it like a million times, I watch a lot of true crime. I must be feeling that vodka. I watch a lot of true crime, and on top of that, I majored in psychology and stuff in college, and I won't say like, oh, just because I majored in psychology, I know a lot of stuff, but like, yeah, I mean, I know some stuff, and psychology is something that interests me in general. And I think that something that psychology teaches you is that, yes, people are crazy, right? But like a lot of the times, like it's this battle between like this nature versus nurture, right? And that's like always such a huge thing. And it's like, are people born evil, or are they like taught this, or are they brought up in an environment which breeds this like evil, like, and it's like, I don't feel like people are born evil. Like, I truly feel like there's there are environmental factors that really can play into like how a person thinks, how people connect to other people, like how they just make connections in the world between like certain things. And like sometimes those connections are just fucking off. And that's not just to say that like, oh, it's always the parents' fault. But I will just say, like I said last week, like a lot of the times when you see these instances with like serial killers or like extremely violent offenders, you can like almost always look into their background and find these huge traumatic events. And it's usually not just a one thing. It's usually like a pattern of trauma and violence and just things that are like exposed to children that they should not be exposed to, that they sort of normalize. Because as a kid, you're not going to know that this shit is not normal, this shit is not right, until you get into a situation where you figure out like, oh, this is how this shit is supposed to work. Like, again, like growing up, my mother is bipolar. She's manic depressive. And so there's a lot of things that like growing up, I thought were normal like situations and didn't realize were not normal until I had a best friend in high school who I started spending a lot of time with at their home and started seeing like how their family dynamics worked. Same thing with like when I started dating in like college and like just being around other people's families and like, oh, like these dynamics in my family are not normal. And even just like telling stories as a kid being like, oh yeah, this is what's happening at my house, and people looking at me sideways like, bitch, that's weird as fuck, or like that's just not normal. Like, how would I have any idea that it's not as a kid? Because this is like what you're living in, this is what you're growing up with, like, right, that's all you know. And so like a lot of the times we see these like situations where people grow up to be these violent offenders or these serial killers, or just like, I mean, like, if we're just gonna, like, blanket umbrella and say just crazy, right? Like, I hate the word, but just, like, crazy, whatever. Like, it's usually because, like, something has happened in their past. And, of course, we have, like, mental illnesses and things like that where people have, like, normal upbringings and then, like, maybe they have a psychotic break and, like, maybe they're schizophrenic or maybe, you know, like, stuff like that. But generally, there's, like, a pattern that really you can see. Like, you can see a pattern of abuse, like, whether it's sexual or physical or mental or emotional or whatever it is, abuse usually within a household or something that a child is like regularly exposed to, where it's just like whatever these connections are that we're supposed to be making that like tells us like quote unquote right from wrong or whatever, just don't connect for certain people. And so I just don't, like, I'm not one to like be like, oh, this person is born evil. I also think that's kind of spiritual in nature or like religious. And I just don't, you know, like I'm saying again, I don't really subscribe to that type of thinking where it's just like, oh, this person was just born evil. Like, I just don't think that. I think a lot of the times it just has to do with how a child grew up. Like, not to blame a parent, but also just like what type of environment did this kid grow up in? What kind of stuff were they seeing? Like, you know, kids are so impressionable. And like, you know, so that's the kind of stuff I feel like if we had seen a little bit more background from Margaret or whatever the fuck, I might have felt more sympathy from her or for her, but I don't, like, because I don't have any of that information. So I'm just looking at her like, no, this is just a crazy bitch who's just, I'm probably looking at her like a daughter who's felt like I might have been wronged by my mother at some point and looking like, fuck this bitch, you know?
I think the only last thing we haven't really touched upon that we should kind of talk about is like the whole prom situation. Like, what did you feel from this whole, I guess it's like a little meet cute kind of scenario with Tommy and Carrie, and they're being all cute on each other and flirting and dancing, and
the scenes with Tommy and Carrie were kind of cute, but at the same time, I'm like super like side-eyeing Tommy the whole time, because I'm like, what are this dude's intentions? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, because at the same time, like, okay, I understand, like, he's a teenage boy, and so he's like, oh, she's kind of cute, like, she's kind of beautiful, whatever, like, she's not as bad as I thought. But at the same time, he has a girlfriend, and he's like basically doing this because his girlfriend told him to do it. So I'm still side-eyeing him. He seems like a sweet guy. Like, he seems genuine because it's not like, it's not like Sue told him, like, oh, be super nice to her. Oh, tell her she's beautiful. Oh, like,
Yeah.
like she didn't say these things. So I know he's kind of just like doing them on his own. But I'm still like, but like, really, what are your intentions? Like, so yeah, I'm pretty skeptical.
What is he trying to do? Is this like a Darrow, falling for a half burnt face girl?
Right,
Is
like,
that this kind of
exactly,
situation where
like,
he's just kind of
same
thirsty?
thing. I'm kind of just
He's
like, what are your intentions here? Because you have Sue, and it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm all for, like, Sue and Tommy. I actually don't care about them. It's just, like, I'm kind of, like, I almost feel like Carrie's, like, protective friend, where I'm like, okay, but what are your intentions with this girl? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you here to embarrass her? Or are you just some, like, sweet guy who kind of just, like, got caught in the middle of, like, his girlfriend's bullshit, and you're just kind of here, and oh yeah, she's cute and she seems nice. Like, I just don't know, because truly we don't have that much information about Billy to really know, like, the type of person he is. And we kind of got a little bit of information from the excerpts, because even, like, the little, like, articles were saying that people were saying that Billy was just as, or not Billy, that Tommy was just as much, like, a part of this whole ruse as anybody else. But then they're basically, like, on Tommy's side, like, well, it's like, the evidence doesn't really point to that. It doesn't really point to him being just, like, so, like, clueless that he had no idea what was going on, but it also doesn't point to, like, him being like, oh, like, I'm part of this plan, like, we're gonna dump pig's blood on this bitch. Like, so I guess he's, like, somewhere in the middle. And I don't know, I'm just, like, really skeptical. Like, I don't hate it, but I'm just, like, proceed with caution. Basically. So, I mean, I appreciate him, like, trying to, like, let her have a good time, but I'm still just like, but who are you as a person? Because also, like, I have, like, watched 90s movies, where it's just, like, the popular guy making a bet with his friends to ask out the unpopular girl, and then the whole time they're just gonna make fun of her at the prom or the dance or whatever it is, and then he falls in love with her along the way and doesn't want to do it anymore. She finds out about it, like, the whole trope. And so I guess, like, that's maybe still also in my mind too, because I'm like, but who is this person? Like, he knows, like, I don't know, it's like at the same time I feel like, but he's gotta know, like, he's popular, like, he's gotta know what's going on behind the scenes. But
and I guess one final question, because this is always brought up in, like, every prom thing, is, like, people spiking the punch. Are people drinking secretly? Like, was there secret drinks
we
going
didn't
around?
have that.
Or drugs?
Our, like, punch did not get spiked. Like, nobody got, like, secretly drunk. Now, I don't know, there might have been other kids on the side who were doing shit that, like, I was just not privy to, but, like, my crew, like, we were not. So, like, it was a completely sober night. Yeah, like, no
clean.
Drugs, no. And then I know, like, a lot of people have, like, their, like,
for the record,
like, for girls, it's almost like a thing, like, you lose your virginity on prom night, and that's like a thing for some reason. I don't know if that started in movies or books or where that started, but it's like this thing you're supposed to, like, lose your virginity on prom night. That didn't happen for, like, my group of friends either, because, again, we all came together at the end of it. Like, all of our dates, we all went to one house, we all, like, ate brunch, we all, like, did this whole thing, and so there was, like, no time for that kind of stuff. But I do know that that's part of it. Like, that's something that people, like, make a big deal out of, like, losing your virginity. And I do know of, like, the drugs and the drinking and stuff, but I didn't personally experience that. We didn't have any drinks, and no one spiked our punch. That's unfortunate. So because now it would have been funny to be like, oh yeah, somebody spiked our punch. We were all drunk in there. Like, that didn't happen. So yeah.
Damn.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, I
that's
didn't know
usually like
about
a
the
big thing, and
virginity
like
thing.
you'll see
Holy
it in
shit.
movies sometimes, or like people are going to prom and they're like planning with their boyfriends to like go to a hotel or whatever it is after, and it just was like that wasn't just a it just wasn't a thing. Like it wasn't realistic for like the group of friends I was with, because it was like no one was about to be like in a hotel with their boyfriend. You know what I'm saying? Like we all went to my friend's house and then we went home. So
Yeah.
like I didn't personally lose my virginity on prom
Wow.
night, but probably some girls out there have, you know.
Yeah. Email us at
Let us
readretalk at
know. Did you
gmail.com.
lose your virginity at your prom, at your senior
Yeah,
prom?
give us
Like,
the.
give us the tea. Oh my goodness.
We
Right.
can
I would
have
love
a
to.
whole
I would love
episode
to.
reading prom night stories.
Yeah,
Hey,
probably.
some of that shit might be better than this
Probably,
book.
because at
I mean,
least they won't
honestly.
give it away at the beginning.
Unless they
Right,
do,
like
they're
if
like,
you do
it was at
send
this
us an
hotel
email
at
with your story,
8:07
please don't
p.m.
make it a like a Carrie type situation, and please leave the plot twist for the end. Thank you.
Please.
hmm
Yeah, I think that's kind of all the big stuff. So like I think that kind of wraps us up. And yeah, for the rest of the book, I mean, we only have
Oh
like
shoot.
80, 90 pages left. So the next
Okay.
100
Okay.
pages will take us to the very end, and then we'll be done with this book.
Hell
And
yeah.
I guess we're gonna watch 2 movies. So that's gonna be exciting. Hopefully they do some different things. I guess, do you have any other final things you wanted to say about this section,
I'm
or
just excited to
any
see,
lingering
like,
thoughts you've
I
had?
guess, like, the end of this book. I'm still, again, like, low key holding out hope that there's some type of twist. Like, I know it's not going to be some huge, like, moment, but, like, I'm hoping there's something that he hasn't given away. But it's like, as I continue to read the book, the more I'm like, oh, just kidding. Like, he's telling me everything, but we'll just see. So, like, I'm still hoping for that. Like, I'm going to hold out hope for like this like Stephen King moment. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like this is
Yeah.
why this
Yeah.
book is a fucking classic, you know? But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm hoping for you too, even though I know it's not gonna happen.
Right? You're like, out of
I'm
the
like,
like
maybe I
5
forgot.
times
Maybe
I've
there's
read
something
this
I
book, like
forgot that
maybe
she's
I
gonna be
did
like,
forget that
hey.
there's a plot twist. Like, no, there's probably not, but I'm still gonna hold out hope that there's something I don't know that's coming. So we'll see.
So that's gonna conclude. Or I guess one final
I'm
question.
drunk.
How are you feeling drink wise? You feeling good?
I put a lot of vodka in my drinks because I was like, well, because I only drank 2 drinks, so
Oh.
I've had about like 5 or 6 shots within these drinks. I kind of like, I was making shots in them, but then I was just kind of like, let me add a little
Damn.
extra on top. Like, it's no worries. Yeah. So, and I haven't eaten dinner
Oh
yet, so it's
no.
kind of like on an empty stomach. So I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great right now. And then when we get off of here, I'm gonna go eat like chicken nuggets and French fries and like try to sober up before I go to bed. But yeah, I feel great. How about you on those like, what are you, like spritzers or whatever they're called? I forgot. Cat head. Yeah.
Cat head, sparkling water. I'm feeling amazing. Yeah, it's like that, like very chill kind of drunk. Like I'm totally drunk, but I'm not like, I don't have a headache. I'm not feeling sick or
And
anything
same.
like that.
Yeah, that's
This is
why I'm
hitting the
kind of
spot.
like
This
fucking
might be
with
my
the
go-to.
vodka sodas, because it's like they get me there, but at the same time they don't have me feeling like sick. Because there's like no, it's literally just like basically vodka, water, and some lime. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, like it's not,
Water,
it's nothing
carbonation.
crazy.
Yeah.
So it's like easy to drink, but then it's like getting me there, and I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna go eat some chicken nuggets and some French fries, and like that's gonna like end my night out. So I'm feeling pretty
Hell
pumped
yeah.
about it.
Hell yeah. Okay, so we're all going to be thinking
Please.
about you
And
and
I
your
will come
chicken
review
nuggets
the
and your
chicken nuggets next.
experience.
And they're just like frozen chicken nuggets. You know what I'm saying? Like kind you just get in the bag and then you put
Ooh.
them in your air fryer and you're like, bam, chicken nuggets in like 10 minutes. So I'm excited. I'm about to go smack on some chicken nuggets.
So is there like specific brand that you like, or are all the chicken
honestly,
nuggets
I'll kind of
equal?
fuck with the Walmart brand chicken nuggets. Oh, I kind of fuck with them because I feel like when you're a
Whoa.
broke
The
bitch, like
classics.
I am typically, like you just default to like the Walmart brand of shit. And so I just really got used to the Walmart chicken nuggets. But my wife doesn't like Walmart chicken nuggets, so she bought Tyson. So now I got to go eat Tyson. I'm like, boo, it's not
What?
the same as that Walmart
Oh.
brand, that great value chicken nugget. So it is what it is. I gotta deal with what I gotta deal with. I guess technically they're better, but I'm like, are they? Because I'm kind of fucking with them great values. But then we have like just like regular like great value Walmart like fries, like seasoned fries. So that's gonna be on the side. And I know those are good,
Okay.
but yeah, it's balanced. Like a little bit of Tyson,
kind of
little
balanced out.
name brand, and then you get some of
You
that
got the
like off
gourmet.
brand shit. So like kind of balanced out. And then now I only use like Whataburger ketchup because they have spicy ketchup. So like I just buy the Whataburger
Oh,
spicy ketchup
shit.
now. Yes, I love that
I
spicy
fuck with
ketchup.
that shit.
Yeah. And
Yes.
like
Oh my
Alabama doesn't have
God.
Kroger, so I don't know where to buy that, but Kroger here in Georgia, they sell Whataburger ketchup now in bottles. So that's where I buy it. Yeah, like you can buy it on Amazon.
What?
Because before Kroger started selling it, I had to
Wow.
like buy it on Amazon. And I would like every now and again just to like spice up my life. But now Kroger has it and they're like $3. I think they're less than $3 now. So I just go over there and just buy some Whataburger spicy ketchup. So I'm going to use some of that. Some spicy barbecue sauce. And I'm about to smack on some nuggets and some fries. It's going to be great.
Ooh.
Yeah.
There you
Please.
go. If Great
Or
Value wants to
Whataburger,
sponsor
like,
the pod.
I got y'all.
Or
I will.
Whataburger.
I'll talk all
Let's
day
go.
about that spicy ketchup. I will find a way to put that into. Now I'll be like, yeah, and like when they could have used like, why didn't they use like Whataburger spicy ketchup for the whole big reveal instead of the pig's blood? Because I definitely feel like it could have it could have been just as right.
Could have had that consistency.
But yeah, so I'm excited.
Oh my! Awesome. Okay, well, we're gonna
Thank
let
you.
Ariel go so she can enjoy some food here. So thank you all for listening to this episode and breakdown of Carrie, our part 2 breakdown. If you want to follow other things I got going on, you can follow my video game news podcast called Headset Chat. I have a movie review podcast called Cineverm. I have 2 YouTube channels, one called A Lonely Gamer, where I play games, and A Lonely Critic, where I do solo reviews. And if you like our conversation with this Carrie breakdown or our discussion on chicken nuggets or the best ketchup in the world, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and send us a message at readrinktalk@gmail.com. We want to hear those prom stories. And then, yeah, any thoughts you have on our discussions that we had or the book. And yeah, we will see you next week and we'll wrap this puppy up.